My next guest is one of the most iconic Brazilian mixed martial artists of the modern MMA era. He is the former World Series of Fighting bantamweight champion, and he is set to compete in the PFL Smart Cage very soon on June 8th. And you can catch that fight on ESPN. And without further ado, Magic Marlon Moraes. Champ, I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. This is a huge honor for me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Be
I want
speaking
to
with you.
I wanted to briefly hit on your tenure at the World Series of Fighting. You were there from 2012 to 2016, and that is the part of your resume that I think about first before your UFC career. I think about that era. And can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like, is there a fight from that era that stands out at your mind as one that you're most proud of? For me, it's probably the Moraes fight.
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. And as a kid, as a martial artist, I grew up in Brazil, and I didn't have money, to be honest, to buy the magazines. But one of my friends, one time, he gave me a magazine, and that was Miguel Torres on a magazine. And my first fight with the World Series of Fighting was against him. So that's the most like iconic fight and memorable for me. Of course, winning the belt was amazing. Be a champion uh, of a major organization was amazing. But that fight, means a lot to me and put me in a an MMA world. And after I beat Miguel, I was top top 15 in the world. And then after I beat Tyson, man, I was top 10. And that was 2013. And I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2020, and 2021. Like eight years in the top 10 of the bantamweight division in the world. That was like this division is one of the best divisions, in my opinion, in the whole world and in the UFC. And in my opinion, it's the toughest one in the UFC. And man, I solidify a great career with the World Series of Fighting, and then I moved on to the UFC, and I reached mostly of my goals. Unfortunately, I wasn't UFC champion, but at some point I was number one in the world, and man, I can't thank God enough for everything that I accomplished. And I end up moving now to the PFL at 45. I feel happy, with the weight. I felt I looked great in my first fight. Second fight, not much, and I didn't fight what I supposed to fight. But hats off to Brandon. Brandon, it's a great champion. He was able to capitalize on the kicks, but to be honest, watching Brandon, knowing the great fighter he is, he was always knowing for the boxing. And at some point in that fight, I saw fear on his eyes to exchange boxing with me. And I saw in that fight that I still got a lot to do. And I'm coming next week to get my spot in the top four. And and I I never ask God for a lot of things. I am always thanking him. But one thing that I'm asking him is to be matched against Brandon in the semifinal and shock everyone and knock him out of the tournament.
Well, I wanted to ask you, like, how is your health? Like, how are you feeling? I know that the leg kicks did some damage. That is what ended up causing the fight against Brendan to stop. But how is your health? Like, how are you feeling as you get ready for a really important fight?
Amazing. We were lucky enough this season. We got 10 weeks between the fights. So the first 2 weeks was mostly recovery, you know. One of Brandon kicks really hit me on a nerve. And man, I started to compete in kickboxing in Brazil. I was 15, and never happened to me, to be honest. And I've been hurt in the legs, I've been hurt in my feet, but the way I was in the last fight and was I never had before. So that the last 10 months, that was a lot of work. I put on work, and this you will never see it again. That happened, not in my fights, not nah, I won't get kicked at all. You know, of course, people can kick me, but I'm always gonna have an answer right now. You know, and we work in every situation, every possibility, and I don't want to be surprised anymore. And to be honest, we're gonna win the next one. And I got fights. I still got fights with the PFL, and I'm looking forward to look great next week and keep looking better. And like I said before, I moved to the PFL because I still know I can put on performances, and that's what I'm looking for next week and for next few fights with the PFL. And PFL is growing. PFL is now one of the biggest names. And I was in the beginning, and everything I have for the sports, I'm gonna give back right now. And I wanna see the day I leave the MMA, I want to see the PFL. A lot of people saying, "Oh my God, PFL is like the UFC, you know, it's like Bellator. They are like tight, you know, and
I
it's coming, and I believe it. And the people working with the PFL, they are putting on a hard work, and I know they will do it.
I think of the PFL and I can't help but be impressed at all of the talent that they're bringing in. And I include your opponent in that wave of really impressive, really exciting talent. I think of when I think of the young Brazilian fighters that most impress me, I'd say your opponent's one of them. Evelyn
Uh huh.
Martins is another one. I think with Evelyn in particular, when I think of her, I think about like somebody who could be like the face of the PFL one day. She's very talented. But let's shift gears. Let's talk about your opponent. He's an undefeated guy, a 10-0 guy, a young Brazilian fighter who probably watched you fight as a kid growing up. You're probably somebody that this guy admired. And, that's a tough thing to do, to share the cage with somebody that you probably were a massive fan of at one point in time. But, I guess that's for him to sort out. But what is it about this guy that makes him so dangerous, in your opinion?
He's a good striker, you know. He's a guy that he can kick you, he can punch you, and we know that. We know his team. We know his school, and I'm very well prepared. I'm ready. I'm ready for next week.
Can you briefly hit on just one quick thing? Like, you talked about how it was so important for you in prior interviews to get a win for your fans. You talked about, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to walk away. I feel like I still have more out of me that I can give to the sport of mixed martial arts. So I guess the question is, a win over Braga, like, what would that mean for you, like at this point in your career and in terms of like the path forward? How important is this to you?
Man, I want to get back to the win, you know, and of course, I never want to get in a cage and win a split decision and people booing after. And I'm not walking in there to win like this, you know, and people know that.
Mm-hmm.
People know I'm going for war, and especially the way this tournament was built and the way I am right now. I got 0 points and I have to make points. And you see Marlon Moraes walking into the cage knowing he needs points. He wants to qualify. That's $1 million on the line. That's no way this fight won't be exciting, you know? Like you just said, this guy, he's a talent. He's a guy that brings a lot to the table as well. And man, that's gonna be a great fight. And that's what I'm looking for as well. I want to be in a good fights. I don't want to be in a boring fight. The first uh the first one, the PFL one, and the fights, to be honest, were boring. The Every fight, no finishes. You know, when I walked to the cage, one thing I knew for sure: my fight won't be boring, and that's what I know for sure. My next fight won't be boring.
You are one of the most important fighters that has come out of Brazil in the modern MMA era. The what you have accomplished in this sport is very, very significant, and there's no amount of justice that I can do in 5 minutes to explain why you are such an iconic fighter that has come from Brazil. But this isn't a game that we could do forever. And 20 years from now, you're not going to be doing this. You're going to move on to something else in your life, focused in business or with your family or doing something different. If there's like a young Brazilian kid out there who 20 years from now goes on YouTube and he sees your fights, he doesn't speak English, he's looking at getting into the sport and moving to America and trying to follow the footsteps of somebody like you? Like, what type of advice would you give to some young Brazilian kid who looks at you and wants to do what you do?
Man, you have to always believe in yourself. No matter how many people deny you, how many people tell you not to do, not to go, just go, you know. Just believe in you. And my whole career since the beginning was like this. And I supposed not to be here. And I'm here right now. And I'm living my dream. I fight for one of the biggest organizations in the world. I fought for UFC title. I won a championship. So everything is possible. You just have to believe yourself and believe you can do anything.
One final question, really, it's not even a question, more of an opportunity. Is there anyone that has been working with you in your camp that you would like to thank before I let you go, sir?
Man, I wanna thank all the coaches in the American top team. And I've been training a lot with my friends from Mahatchkala, from Dagestan Fighter. And I train a lot with Ima Kriziev, and he have a big fight with the Bellator as well. And I think me and him, we had probably 5 fights in the way to our next fight. So, man, I'm excited. I can't wait to see him and see Ramazan Kuramagomedov. He's fighting Jalal Willis, I think. And that's another big name, man, coming out of Mahatchkala. And all my friends from there. I built a great relationship with all the guys from uh, Zabit, Maga, Timur, and I've been always working with these guys. And now they are here at the American Top Team, being able to meet with them and train with them. It's amazing, you know. And man, I can't wait to fight next week and then watch them fight.
Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending your evening with me, Magic Marlon Moraes. Thank you, Marlon.